Hey there, hope you're doing well. In today's video, we'll learn a little bit about Nexus and Maven. We're going to take a very simple example and publish a library to a Nexus repository. Right, so without further ado, let's get started. So for those of you who may or may not be familiar with the differences between Nexus and Maven, let me just do a quick Google search and let's see if there's, I know I found a piece of text that said that, yeah, actually this one here. Nexus, they are related pieces of software. While you could use one without the other, they generally work quite well together. This is the best way to look at that. Nexus provides a repository while Maven uses that repository to build software, right? So let's go through our example, and if you don't know this already, it hopefully will become clearer. But let's take an example, just a very basic use case. Say you're working in a team of a few different developers, and maybe let's say you have two teams, right? Each of them both of them are contributing to the same project, the same product or application, but they're actually solving slightly different problems. So one team, I don't know, I didn't come prepared to this video thinking of examples, just like I don't. Most of my videos, I just hit record and start speaking to it. So excuse these contrived examples. Let's say one of the teams is building, both teams are going to publish a microservice, right? It doesn't have to be a microservice, but let's say it is a microservice. So each one's going to publish a library that the other team actually also wants to consume. Maybe they're working towards building an application that has dependencies on both of those libraries. I think finally, after saying 4 different things, I've arrived at the best way to code that example. Ultimately, look at it as 2 teams. Each team is actually building a library and they need to publish it to a repository so the other team can consume it. Very simple, right? So here's the simplest possible, like a hello world Java app. All that it does right now is it just prints a string, right? There's a main method and it prints manage projects better. Do it on snowpal.com. If you already aren't using the platform, definitely check it out. So that's just my pitch right there. So let's say this is a very basic Java app that has absolutely nothing, because we don't need to have it to do anything more to understand the premise of this video essentially. So I am on a Mac, and typically at work, the Nexus, you're not going to necessarily be running Nexus locally. It's going to be running on one of your team servers, and all of the teams are going to publish to that same Nexus repository. But when you're doing development, let's say you want to get set up, you want to be able to publish this to a Nexus server that's running locally. So I'll also show you what you might need to do to get set up. For starters, you want to install Nexus. I had initially done a brew install of Nexus, and I'm on an M1 Mac. As it turns out, the brew install actually I was going to do grep brew. Yep, I tried to do a few different things here before I could get Nexus running on this machine. The brew install just did not work for me. I can't remember the error message, but I ran into more than one error. So I could not actually get Nexus running using brew. So what I then did was I literally just went to Nexus download from Mac. I'm just going to say Nexus download. Okay, here, let's go here. And then you can actually pick, if you're on Linux or Windows or OS X, just pick the right archive and you can install it, right? So that's what I did. I installed it just by downloading this, unzipping it, and the usual process. And I downloaded that too. I put that in my downloads folder, as you can see here, right? And then if I go to bin, you have the actual Nexus script there. Okay, now to start this, you're gonna do /bin/. Let's do a status on it first. Okay, it stopped, so we're going to now start this. Oops, typo there. It takes about 30 seconds or so. Yeah, it does take a little bit of time. And once it starts up, we should be able to access that I think I believe it's on port 8081. Yep, it's going to take a tiny bit of time. Let's see. While it comes up, let's wait for a few seconds. Again, back to this repo. So we have a very basic app, and then we have a POM file here. Let's go through this POM file. There are a few sections that are more important than others. This one here, for instance, dependencies, that's just where you add all of your dependencies, right, for your particular application. In our case, we have an app that literally does nothing but asks you to do the right thing one more time. So I don't have any dependencies, but just this one. That apart, let's see what are some other sections that are actually important. I'll try to go through this. I don't know. You may have to read the documentation. I'm just going to give you an idea and tell you what some of the changes are that you need to do to get this working. But if you have specific questions, feel free to hit me up. But you can also, just Google and check these out. There are a few sections here in this POM file that are more important than others. This one here, the configuration, and then the Nexus URL, right? So that's where our that's where this repo is going to, this app, this library that we're going to build, we want to actually publish it to this Nexus repo. That's what this is pointing to. In the meantime, I think this may have come up already. Yep. So I'm going to sign in here. The first time you do it, it actually has a default password and it'll tell you where the file is located. I just did a cat on that file and it gave me that initial password. Then I just logged in using that password and then I updated the password basically, right? So now I'm signed in here. So you can play with this user interface, but this is kind of how it looks. If you see here, yeah, these are the ones I've published so far. Maybe what I can do is I can actually try and let's see where to go to delete this. Browse snapshot. Let's see, let's try to delete the component. Let's try to delete the folder. Okay, we've gotten rid of that one there. Let's go back here. Okay, so let's start on a clean slate here. We browse, and we're going to publish to this Maven snapshots here, right? Okay, go back here. So this is the URL that it's pointing to. So in your case, you would actually be pointing to a server, a remote server that you're running for your team, for your group of teams or whatnot, essentially for your in your company, right? If you're not running this locally, that is. So that's one. Let's look at some other things that are actually interesting, that are of interest here, I should say. Distribution management. This is also important. Not also, this is very important. So the distribution management can have either a snapshot repository as a child element or a repository. You can look up the differences between the two. So in this case, we have a snapshot repository and we have a URL that points to Maven snapshots, right? So it's going to be pointing to this one here. And it has a name. And there's one more thing that is important outside of what's in this POM file. And again, I did this like a few days ago, which is one of the reasons I don't exactly remember all of the changes I made. But let me go here. Yep, okay. I don't want to do a cat because that file actually has a password and I may have well used a generic password there. But I'll show you what the settings.xml should include. Let's look at, let's even Google Nexus settings.xml. Let's see if we can find some documentation around what it should say. Essentially, the login information is in that settings.xml, and you need to make sure that it's going to look something like this. So you're going to have a username and password, and that needs to map to whatever you have set up on your server, so you're able to publish this essentially, right? I'm trying to think. I'll try to pull up that file after hiding my password, but it took a couple of attempts for me to get this actually running, because the ID has to match. So where it says Nexus snapshots, it has to map to this value here. It needs to be identical, otherwise it's not just going to work. And then if your credentials are invalid, you're not going to be able to publish as well. So there's a few different errors I ran into. I don't exactly remember what those are, but like this one says, put this in your settings.xml file, and that configures the credentials to publish to your repos. Exactly like what I mentioned like a couple of minutes ago. It just says it in better language. So make sure you have that file and it has the correct ID and the credentials, so you're able to publish to this repo. Now let's go here. I'm going to go also to the command line. I'm going to go to the project. Yeah, I just created Maven examples, Java project, it's here. I'm going to do a Maven clean. Okay, and then I'm going to do a Maven install. Okay, you notice that after I did the Maven, and let me do this again. Keep an eye on the left pane. Maven clean, right, and then I do a Maven install. Right, you notice that obviously the target got created, and then the Java project, this is just the name, it's version 1.1. And let's publish this, and we'll try to change update these numbers and whatnot, right? Let's say now your team completed the library and they're able to publish this for the other teams to consume. They're like, hey, you know what, I've completed my piece. Maybe let's say one of the features we have on snowpal.com is a conversations feature, which is which is a service by itself, right? It's a microservice. It does conversations. You can send private messages, group messages, chat with other people, and yada yada yada. But that's independent of everything else that we do, and it can fit in, and it is going to fit in with, into other products that we're going to build in the company, that we have started to build in the company as well, right? So it's a service, a microservice in itself. So that microservice is built by a team of people, and it's being published. In our case, it's not built using Java. Our current stack uses like Node and Ruby and other things, but this example obviously is using Java. But assume that this Java project is a conversations library, right? It's publishing those endpoints and whatnot. So let's say I'm part of the team, we've done creating it, and we are ready to publish this. Now I'm going to do an MVN deploy, Maven deploy. Okay, so this actually should have deployed, and there must have been let's first go here. Let's go to Maven. You see that there is a Java project here. This was not there before. If you remember, we had deleted all of them, and this is the group com.snowpal.project. The version is 1.1, and if I go here, it shows all of these artifacts. Right now I can browse the snapshot. I can take a look at more details. Last downloaded, nobody's downloaded this because nobody else has used this just as yet, and there's additional information that is potentially of interest, right? So let's actually go back. I want to show you something else. Let's go back here. Actually, let's go to Maven. Let's go here, and then let's go to POM, and it's going to say usage, right? Now, if you look at this, this is the dependency. The other team that wants to leverage the conversations feature can now essentially edit their POM file and add this dependency, right? They can say, hey, you know what, this is the group ID, this is the artifact. You could just share this with them, or they can discover it by going to the Nexus Repo Manager, and then this is running locally, like I mentioned, localhost 8081. But in the real world, you're going to be publishing it to a team or a team-wide, or even a company-wide, depending on the size of your company, Nexus repos. So the other teams will discover. They're like, hey, this is the snapshot version 1.1, blah blah blah. They're going to copy this, and they're going to go to their POM file, and they're going to stick it in the POM file as a dependency, just like we saw JUnit, right? That's literally what they're going to do. Now they started consuming it. Now let's say you continue to make further changes and you want to publish a newer version. How might you do that, right? So the current version is 1.1. So let's search for Java project 1.1. Oops. That's not the one I'm looking for. Where does Where is the file? Java project 1.1 dependencies. Let me find the file where this needs to be. Okay, this may be the location. Let's see, I'm going to make it 1.2, and then let's say you made more code changes, you updated the version number, and then you're going to do a Maven deploy. Well, yep. Okay, now let's go back to the repo here. I'm going to refresh it. Yep, I thought there was another file where I had to make this change, but perhaps not. Maybe the only change I have to make is here. So this is version 1.2, right? So the same thing, there's no different. You go here, someone wants to consume it, they can pick up this dependency, right? So they can pick up this version number and they can start using it. Now when they add this to their POM file and do a Maven install, it's obviously going to download it and they can start leveraging that library, and you're going to see some stats here that says it's been downloaded and so on and so forth, right? You can look through other interesting pieces of information here, but that's essentially the gist of it. Now if I go back to browse and go to Maven, you can see that, right? This is 1.1 and this is 1.2. So you're going to see a history of all of your versions. And of course this repo, the Nexus Manager, has nothing else, right? It only has this single library that was published, only a couple of versions. So it's easy to find. But obviously, as more teams and as you publish more libraries into the repo manager, this tool becomes even more useful, right? You're going to do some searching and whatnot, right? It's not going to be as easy to find what you're looking for like it is right now. So that's in terms of publishing it. That's in terms of hosting it on the Nexus server. I don't know if there's anything else that we need to talk about here. That's basically, and you can look through all of the targets and what's generated and a variety of these files. There's a lot of other things of interest, but that's essentially it. So all that knowing this and nothing more, literally, you can start contributing to your Java library, start publishing it, start interacting with other teams who are actually dependent on your library, publishing versions and consuming them, and so on and so forth, right? Let's see if there's other things here that I can actually show you that's of more interest. Okay. Proprietary repos, routing rules, privileges, roles, users. I know I made some changes here. Don't exactly remember what those are, unfortunately, but I'm not certain if those were needed to get to the point where we are at right now. So maybe I was just mucking around with this. I've not actually done much with the Nexus Manager, so I was just curious to see how long it might take to just get it set up and running on your machine. And this is the first time I'm doing it like running it locally. Other than the initial hiccups I ran into with the version numbers and not being able to get Nexus up and running, I think the rest of it was reasonably all right. I did run into issues here and there, but and now if you do a status, it's going to say it's running, and you can stop it once you're done. I think that's good enough for now, I think. Hopefully this answered some questions you had. If you've not done this before, maybe it give you some idea about how you might actually get going with Nexus and Maven. I wish I had taken a screenshot of the errors I ran into with the install of Nexus in particular, but I don't have it. But there were some, it wasn't easy to, just like everything else, you can't just expect Stack Overflow to solve world hunger. You go there, people run into the same issue because of a variety of different reasons, and if you blindly try to look up a solution and see, have that work for you, it may or may not, right? It may or may not. So you have to see what specific issues you're running into and sort of address them in that sense. Well, I think this is good enough for now. If you haven't checked, I'll end the video here. If you haven't checked out our platform, definitely go to snowpal.com, play with it. There's like a ton of features, and you can also download our app from the App or Play Store. There's features that we publish all the time, and we're getting close to actually deploying another huge set of features, which I'm pretty sure you're gonna like. That's about it. Thanks, and talk to you soon. Bye bye.